Hello everyone and welcome into a brand new socially distanced season of Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host Sarah Baskin alongside Michael Nuosa, Lincoln Revel, and the legendary Jack Buckmeyer. Fellas, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. Okay. Let's get right into it. A couple weeks ago, UNT played HBU and absolutely blew them out of the water. 57-31 win. Had a 721 yards of total offense. That set a school record. Jack, I'm going to start with you. Was this win reflective of what we can expect to see from UNT for the rest of the season?
Well, it's hard to tell. They did have 721 yards offense, school record, but look who they gave it up. They did it to Houston Baptist, who aren't even remotely close in terms of talent-wise, but then they go out against Texas Tech and almost beat them in Lubbock, so you never know really what it's like. It was the first game of the season. There might have been a little nerves there. But you have Jason Bean, the man with the arm sleeve and a dream, go out, throw it like he's never thrown it before. We come out and we actually beat them at home. It was a great win, and it really was good to see the post-Mason Fine era start out right.
What do you think, Michael?
I definitely agree with the points that Jack made. It was the very first game of the season, but UNT definitely showed out. They took control for the majority of the game, scoring 57 points. But yeah, it's a little bit too early to tell. We'll see today how they play against SMU.
Lincoln, what do you think?
I do agree. I think that it is a little too early to tell. We did have a good outing a couple weeks ago against Houston Baptist. However, because it is an FCS team, I do think that this week against SMU will really show a lot more of what we're capable of. I kind of want to throw it back to last season. We started out very well against ACU, and then from there, season kind of went downhill. So I think it's a little too early to tell. We really need to get through the first couple of games before we can actually know whether it's going to be a good or bad season.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the quarterback situation is going to play out. This is the post-Mason Fine era for UNT. And a couple weeks ago, we saw Jason Bean, Austin Ani. We even saw some Kason Martin there at the end of the game. My question for you, Jack, is which quarterback gives us the best chance to succeed moving forward?
I think it is Jason Bean. I really do think he solidified himself this past week, 2 weeks ago. He went out, threw for about 217 yards, 3 touchdowns. He kind of went out. He threw the interception, of course, but, as the young folks say, he risked it for the biscuit and he didn't quite get it. But Austin Ani came in. He is the 27-year-old sophomore quarterback, but unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win the job this year. Might win it when he's 28 or 29. We'll never know. And then the game is going well if Kason Martin goes in. I love him. He dances really nice, but unfortunately, he's not going to beat out anybody anytime soon.
Lincoln, are you on the Jason Bean train as well?
I am, yes. I'm cheering for the Mean Green Bean, as I like to call him.
Yes, sir.
But I think he had a really good outing against Houston Baptist a couple weeks back. He ended 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, was 11 for 18 overall. And then Austin Ani also had a good outing, his first outing at QB really for North Texas. But I think that Bean will be the starter for the majority of the season.
Michael, what about you?
Definitely agree with Lincoln and Jack. Jason Bean came out gunslinging, throwing the ball for 3 touchdowns. Yes, he did throw 1 interception, but the guy's only a sophomore. He's the same age as me. Sometimes it makes me kind of jealous, but he did great. And after throwing that interception, he came back poised and still threw more touchdowns. So definitely great to see. I'm definitely interested to see how he grows for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Jason Bean's probably the man moving forward, but I am interested to see a little bit more from Austin Ani. Now, you mentioned that interception. I do think it wasn't as much of a bad decision by Jason Bean as it was just an excellent play by the HBU defense, which brings me to my next point. How much of a concern, Lincoln, was our defense? We gave up 31 points against a team we really shouldn't have.
Yeah, defense is definitely still concerning. I will say I think we improved a lot from last season. We had one of the worst defenses, I think we can all safely say, in the Conference USA. But I do think that we did improve a lot for this season. However, with a good team like SMU coming up, especially an air raid team, our secondary is really going to have to step up. Secondary was a big Achilles heel for our defense last season. And so I do think secondary will really have to step up against a good air raid team like Shane Buechele and SMU.
Yeah, we'll touch on that SMU game in just a little bit. But Michael, how are you feeling about the defense this year?
I agree. I definitely believe our defense needs to improve on 3rd down. Us allowing HBU to drop 31 points on us is definitely like a big problem. So we're definitely going to be tested against SMU today, and hopefully we can fix certain problems and just switch it up defensively, maybe blitz and pressure the quarterback and make him be uncomfortable in the pocket.
What about you, Jack?
Hey, look, it's the first game of the year. They're nervous. There was probably a little bit of jitters out there. You've lost a lot of your defense last year. And Bailey Zapp, the quarterback for Houston Baptist, man, that dude knows how to throw the pigskin. He goes out and almost beats Texas Tech, as I said earlier. So you are nervous because they did give up a lot of passing yards, but also it's the first game of the year. You never know what's going to happen against a rivalry like SMU. So Shane Buechele may come out and beat the living tar out of us, but we might come out and completely destroy them. You'll never know.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they play this afternoon. But, you know, we mentioned Jason Bean and that 721 yards of total offense. Michael, was there an offensive player that impressed you the most last week?
Other than Jason Bean having a great show out here for his first game, I would probably say Oscar Attaway, the running back. He had 5 carries for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he definitely showed out.
What about you, Lincoln?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think Attaway did have a really impressive game against Houston Baptist. However, my impressive player, really, Jason Bean, as I mentioned earlier, he really showed out in the game against Houston Baptist, and I'm honestly really excited to see how he does for the rest of the season coming up.
Yeah, you look at Attaway, 40% of his rushes were touchdowns. That's pretty impressive. And then come in, he is a freshman. But I was looking at the Jalen Darden, Jason Bean connection, 3 touchdowns, 75 yards. It's good to see that they're clicking even with Mason Fine not there anymore. It's good to see Jalen Darden still catching the football and still scoring.
I agree. I was really impressed with Jalen Darden. You know, he's a senior this year. Jack, what do you think we can expect from him in his senior year, the rest of the season? Do you think he's going to try to break some records?
Yeah, hopefully he does. Hopefully he breaks the curse. Like last year, Rico Bussey, he unfortunately tore his ACL. We didn't have that number 1. He stepped in, and now he has that full year to be the number 1. I think he goes out, balls out, and tries to make that next step into the NFL.
What about you, Michael?
Definitely agree. Jalen Darden, he's talented. He's from Houston just like me, so I know he's going to be ready to – yes, ma'am. I know he's going to be ready to go off and play good, led by Jason Bean having an arm and be able to get him open and go off.
And Lincoln, do you think that there are other receivers that have, you know, been pretty good for us, but that could step up to that level right now?
Like I said, I think it's kind of hard to tell right now. We did have a couple of receivers that did show out in the game against Houston Baptist, but I do think Jalen Darden really was the receiver that stood out the most to me, at least, against the game against Houston Baptist.
What about you, Jack?
You have to. They did lose a lot last year. You lost, 2 of your best 3 receivers, and Jalen Darden comes in. He really is, that is your go-to guy, especially with a quarterback who really doesn't have that much experience. You need that one guy who's been there a long time. He was a preseason consensus All-CUSA player. So that's really who's going to lead your receiving corps going into this new generation of players.
I agree. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him to, pass the torch on to all those new guys. But, we know how we feel about all the quarterbacks for UNT. But let's toss it over to Apogee Stadium and Zach Fox to hear about what Coach Seth Luttrell said about our quarterbacks earlier in the week. Zach?
Stadium on the campus of the University of North Texas. Home of your
Greetings, everybody. I'm Zach Fox, stationed right outside of beautiful Apogee Stadium. 79-degree and crystal blue sky. Beautiful day for kickoff. Beautiful day for a Safeway Bowl, aka Rivalry Week here against SMU. I had a chance to sit down with head coach Seth Luttrell Tuesday and get his thoughts on how Week 1 went as far as the quarterback dual threat and Jason Bean and Austin Ani, and even potentially Kason Martin. All 3 had a cameo in the Game 1 win against HBU last week. Now, talking to Coach, he feels good about both of these guys, and we'll go from there. Austin Ani with 6 of 11 on passing, 111 yards for 1 touchdown pass. He came in with 4:25 to go in the third quarter. The only reason why he came in so late is because the star of the game was Jason Bean, the starting quarterback for the game. Immediately came out through 2 touchdown passes immediately. He ended off the night with 217 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 rushing. So Coach Seth Luttrell last week mentioned that whoever's hotter, they're going to play more. Jason Bean was on fire Week 1. I'd assume Jason Bean is going to go ahead and start off today's game against SMU, who's coming off a Week 1 win. If Beans, for some reason, goes cold, Austin Ani, be prepared to back up. Coach says he will win with both of these quarterbacks, so he looks forward to the opportunity to do that. The only thing that's changed so far within last week's game and this week and for the future of this this football season is the fact that head coach Seth Luttrell will now be in the ears of the quarterbacks during the week. He is now the quarterback coach. In fact, he's also the offensive coordinator. So he wants to be in the heads of all three quarterbacks. He wants all three minds to think alike, especially when calling plays. Now, as far as fans, 25% capacity, 7,000 here at Apogee Stadium. The fact that he had to play with all 7,000 fans last week, getting to sit down with head coach Seth Luttrell and J.D. Davis and what his thoughts on what the stadium and the play is going to be like, it's not going to be that much different. This week's not going to be it's going to be the exact same. So hopefully the fans can be a 12th man and help out as much as they can for this Safeway Bowl win. We hope for a good game. Go Mean Green, and back to you at the studio.
Thank you so much, Zach. We're looking forward to seeing what you got for us next week as well. And when we come back, we're going to check in with the other teams in Conference USA and decide if we agree with the Big Ten's big decision.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Joe, spot on this last one. There it is.
Keep going with it. Leo! They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
Roll over.
Chance high five. All right.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. And your mother and... I am totally a hot person. Right, guys? Thanks for being honest. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org.
And welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. The Big Ten reversed their decision they made earlier in the summer to punt on their football season and will start an 8-game season starting on the weekend of October 24th. Now that 8 weeks of the season will be over in time for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Michael, do you think that it was the right decision for the Big Ten to reverse and start playing?
I definitely believe it was the right decision for them to reverse and start playing. Seeing the other Power 5 conferences such as the ACC, Big 12, SEC, and other conferences like playing, it just influenced them to like join and also play. And also like if you think of it in a recruiting standpoint, players want to play. They don't want to see their other friends on other teams playing, and you don't want to potentially see like players have to transfer to different schools and not play. So I definitely believe it was the right decision for them to play. I
agree. I mean, what if Joe Burrow hadn't played his final season at LSU? I doubt he would have been the #1 draft pick, and I'm sure that there will be guys that come to the front at Ohio State and other schools like that. But Jack, do you agree?
I do agree. I mean, first off, congratulations to the players. They went out. They wanted to play. They kept voicing their opinions, and it worked. College football didn't seem right without the Big Ten. It didn't feel right. Ohio State, Michigan, that rivalry, Michigan State, Penn State, it just didn't seem right without them. And now you have them coming back. It's not only good for college football itself, but it's good for the fans. Now you're going to have high intensity football games every single week. You're going to have ranked teams every single week. And then you get players like Shaun Wade, who actually opted out for Ohio State. They're a highly ranked quarterback. He opted back in. So now you have players who opted out, opting back in. it's good to see that college football will be getting that boost that I think we all wanted to see.
What do you think, Lincoln?
Yeah, I think the Big Ten really made a good decision in allowing their teams to continue on with the season. I think it's very important for these players to be able to continue on with their seasons, and a lot of them are in college to play football. Like that's the primary reason they're there. So I think it's really important for them to be able to do that. And I think that they really just looked at the other conferences and was like, hey, this isn't as bad as we thought. We could still do this. And so I think it was a very good decision for them to continue on with the season.
I agree. The one thing I'll be interested to see is whether or not that affects any schools like Ohio State, getting into the college football playoff. What if the committee sets a minimum game of maybe 7 games and Ohio State has to, not play a couple due to COVID? It'll be very interesting to see. So we'll wait till December to see about that. But moving on to Conference USA, a smaller conference, the one that UNT is a part of, they had decided to play early on. We're never going to not play. Jack, do you think this was the right decision for them?
Yeah, it's a big difference between jumping from the Big Ten to the CUSA. But I think CUSA's decision was a little more easy to make than Big Ten. CUSA doesn't have the luxury that Big Ten has. They have the TV deals, they have the stadiums, they have the fans, they have the infrastructure and the money. And CUSA really doesn't. They had to cancel a bunch of their other fall sports like soccer and other things that normally are big moneymakers for universities. So I think the decision to play was really more for the benefit of the schools financially more than to get the players and the fans more football on the field.
Yeah, sorry about that. I kind of want to touch up on that. I think that it was. I do agree. I think it was a very big, important decision to be able to play football now, especially in the Conference USA, because as UNT did, they canceled every other sport, moved it all to the spring except for football. And so I think it also helps the fans and students, and just gives us something to look forward to with college football. So I sort of wanted to talk about the fan aspect of it, and it just. Having football just gives us something to look forward to, and really just gives us something to look forward to.
I agree. I think it's important for the fans. I think it's important for the players. You guys touched on, all the other fall sports getting postponed to the spring, and it does really make you sad for those girls playing soccer and volleyball. But we'll see them in the spring, and we'll be cheering them on then. But Michael, do you agree with the conference's decision to continue to play?
Most definitely, I agree with that decision. As a fan, part of coming to college is like just going to football games and being part of that experience. So it's definitely a plus having games open for fans to go watch.
Now UNT finished last year with a record of 4-8. We were expecting to do a little bit better than that, maybe even go to a bowl game. But teams like UAB, La Tech, even Charlotte gave us trouble last year. So Jack, I want to ask you, how do you think UNT compares to the rest of the conference?
It's tough to tell. You lose the greatest quarterback in school's history. It's hard to recover and rebound from that. And other teams are still strong. UAB is still a strong team. La Tech is always going to be up there, and Southern Miss is still upper echelon. And now you have Rice, who's relatively has always been at the bottom, and now they're on the rise. So I think it's more. This might be another one of those, 5-6 wins. I don't think we're going to be on top because this is kind of your rebuilding of your program. But, maybe we go out, maybe we shock the world, maybe we win the conference. But, I wouldn't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Lincoln?
I do. I do think that it'll be an improvement from last season. I think we'll do better than 4-8, but like you said, UAB, very strong team. La Tech, also a strong team, and so those will definitely be big obstacles for us to overcome. And I think it's a little too early to tell. We do lead we're up in the top of the conference in pass yards, rush yards, and just total yards overall. Like Sarah mentioned earlier, that school record of 761 yards.
I believe 21.
721, is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, but just that overall record, I think it's a little too early to tell on that, so that'll definitely be something to look forward to within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, those 721 yards of total offense, those are going to, keep us on top for a while, kind of like Dak Prescott going 13-3 in his first season in the league. But Michael, how do you think UNT compares to the rest of the conference?
I feel like it's definitely going to be a tough season this year. Losing Mason Fine, obviously our best quarterback in our history, is going to be an adjustment for our offense. But hopefully these young guys can get everything together and we can be able to compete. But our division is full of good teams. Like La Tech is always consistently good. And Florida Atlantic had a great year last year, so we'll see how this plays. But I feel like it's just too early to tell. We'll see how it plays as the season continues.
Yeah, I agree. And touching on Mason Fine, it is hard to lose statistically your best quarterback that's ever played for your school. But like I said, we did go 4-8 last year, so maybe it was time to get some new blood in there. I think these new quarterbacks are going to be really good going forward. And I know that having head coach Seth Luttrell be the offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach right now, calling all the plays, having everything under one guy can really help with consistency for those new guys. But Jack, I want to ask you, who do you think will win the West Division of CUSA? That's North Texas, UTSA, UTEP, UAB, La Tech, Rice, and Southern Miss. Who do we see coming out of that one?
Well, first, just like to say apologies to UTSA, UTEP. They're still at the bottom of the barrel. They're not jumping anyone. I think it's going to come down to La Tech, Southern Miss, and UAB. They play each other kind of towards the beginning of the season, so it's going to be interesting to see out of those three who really controls it. I think North Texas could be one of those teams that comes in there and wreaks havoc in the standings, but also I do feel like Southern Miss, Jack Abraham, he's still there. He's now, without Mason Fine, he is the best quarterback in CUSA. UAB, they're still a strong offense, strong defensive team, and La Tech, they've always been good, or they've always been in the upper echelon. So I really do think it becomes down to those three teams, with North Texas maybe coming in and busting some bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Michael?
I believe in the West, I think La Tech is going to come out and win that because they've been consistently good for multiple years now, so why not pick them?
I could see La Tech coming out of that one as well. But Lincoln, who do you got?
Yeah, so I basically chose La Tech and UAB in the Western, fighting for the West. UAB, as we know, La Tech ended last season 10-3 overall. They made a bowl game. The biggest thing that I saw out of there is that they're bringing in a big quarterback from ACU, Luke Anthony, who had 2,525 yards and 17 touchdowns for the Wildcats last season. And so I think that addition could really help them this season. But UAB also has a strong team. They ended 9-3 last season, just a very good offensive and defensive team. So I really think that UAB will pull it out. So I think they'll win the West.
And really quick, who do you think will come out of the East?
Out of the East, I think it'll be Marshall and Western Kentucky. I was very impressed with Marshall's game against App State last week. And no, they didn't play App State. They played Eastern Kentucky, that is. I apologize there. But yeah, I was very impressed with their outing. Won 59-0. So I think that they'll turn a lot of heads. They'll change a lot of minds. So I think they'll end up making it. But I think Marshall will end up winning the East.
Jack, real quick, one word. Who's your winner?
I'm gonna go with Western Kentucky. I'll be a little different. I'll go Western Kentucky.
Michael?
I'm gonna go with Florida Atlantic. Last season they balled out. We're 11-3, so why not choose them?
Florida Atlantic. All right. Well, coming up next, we will hear from our resident college football expert, Connor Hibbett, for his top 5 things to watch around the league, and some of them might surprise you, so stick around.
And you want to ride? No, I got my car back. I actually really need to go to the bathroom.
Dude, are you okay?
I am definitely buzzed.
Yeah.
I think I will take this, and I will take that ride home.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/therightseat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
Play Eric Amarola's Race Day Mix.
One in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your dog walker,
On your left!
your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, pre-diabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Hey.
If you love me enough to tolerate my perfect little pets and all their glorious dander, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
Every family dreams to have their own house. This house changed our lives.
Habitat for Humanity is at work in your community and around the world. Through shelter, we empower.
And welcome back into Mean Green Game Day. You know, it's hard to keep up with everything that's going on in college football, so that's why we have our resident expert, Connor Hibbett. He's going to give us his top 5 things to watch in college football for this week. Connor, what do you got for us?
Thank you, guys. There is so much that I'm looking forward to talking about for this college football season and in what could be the craziest college football season that we have ever witnessed. But for today, I'm going to be talking about 4 things, 2 of which are games. The first game that I'm going to be previewing is App State and Marshall. In what could be one of the best Group of 5 non-conference games for the 2020 season, we have 2 amazing strengths for both of these teams, with App State's veteran offense and Marshall's veteran defense. I'm also looking forward to seeing what quarterback for either team will do better. For App State, we have preseason first team all Sun Belt selection Zach Thomas under center, and for Marshall, we have redshirt freshman Grant Wells. Now, Grant Wells had a great opening day against Eastern Kentucky in his first game as the starter for Marshall. Now it's Eastern Kentucky. We'll see what he does against App State. A great game. Y'all should tune in. The other game that I'm going to be previewing is Louisville and Miami. Now, for this game, in the ACC, these 2 teams are from the ACC, and in the ACC this season, there is really, outside of Clemson, not much parity between the other 14 teams. Now, typically, the ACC has 14 teams in the conference, but Notre Dame was added this season due to the kind of weird offseason that we've had this year. So there's really not much parity, again, between 14 and the 15 teams. And in this game, I think the winner of this game will have a lot of say-so in the top half of the ACC for 2020. Now, for this game, 2 matchups that I'm really looking forward to seeing in tonight's game. That is the heavy read option running game from the Miami offense versus the young and inexperienced defensive line for Louisville. That matchup, whoever wins that battle, will go a long way in determining the winner of this game. The other 2 things that I'm going to talk about, another ACC unit and team, the Pittsburgh defense. Pat Narduzzi, who has been in the Steel City the last several years, has said before this season how this could be his best defense he has ever had. The former Michigan State defensive coordinator has had a lot of great defenses, yet he said this could be his best defense he has ever had. It will be interesting to see how this Pittsburgh defense and how far this Pittsburgh defense can take the Panthers this season. And again, in a wide open race for second place ACC conference this season. The other thing I want to talk about, I saved this part for last because I think this is the best part and my most favorite part for this weekend. Breakthrough teams for this season. Now, I'm going to look at this from 2 different perspectives, the Power 5 and the Group of 5. Now, teams that had breakthrough years last year, and if I think that they're capable of doing so again this year, I don't consider those teams breakthrough for this season because that was last year, and typically teams who do something the year before another year that you were doing preseason polls for, they're going to be ranked similarly to how they finished. So I don't count those teams. I'm talking about the teams who we're going to look at a year from now and talk about how well this season could potentially go. I'll start with the Group of 5 because I have a little bit more teams there and I want to hit them quickly here. Western Kentucky. Now, I know they've started off 0-2, but I think that they can do very well in the Conference USA East Division this year. Houston, from the American Athletic Conference, is another team that I think could really surprise people this year. Now, the Cougs went 4-8 last season, but again, I'm all about this current season, not what happened last year, and I think the Cougs could turn those 8 losses from 2019 into 7 or 8 wins for 2020. Back to Conference USA. I'm going in the order of how successful I think these teams will do. Southern Miss. I think this team, even though they started off on the wrong foot in their first game of the season against South Alabama, the rest of their games up until early November are against teams who are returning some of the least amount of production in college football. So whether it's Southern Miss's doing or the opponent's inability of doing so, I think will have a good amount of saying in what kind of fate the Golden Eagles season can be this year. But I think the Golden Eagles will find a way to win 7 or 8 games, surprising a lot of people. Coastal Carolina, who we've already seen started off on a great note with their non-conference victory over a Power 5 opponent. Kansas, I know, but it's a Power 5 opponent. Coastal Carolina entered the FBS just a few short years ago, but don't be surprised if they finish with their first winning season since joining the FBS in 2017. I see the Chanticleers finishing with around 6 or 7 wins this year, depending on how many games they play. If it's 11 games, I think they're winning 6 games, but I think they're finishing with a winning record. Don't be surprised there. They have a great running back, and C.J. Marable, I think he's the best running back in the Sun Belt. The other team I'm going to be previewing, another Conference USA team, the Rice Owls. Who? The Rice Owls, not the Florida Atlantic Owls. I think Rice can potentially win some games this year. I don't think this is going to be your 1 or 2 win Rice. I think this could be your 3 or 4 or 5 win Rice team. Thank you for your time. Back to y'all at the desk.
All right, thank you so much for that, Connor. Pittsburgh possibly being number 2 in the ACC. I don't know how I feel about that. And also Coastal Carolina having a winning season. We'll just have to see. But Jack, do you agree with him about Pittsburgh possibly hitting that number 2 spot?
Man, I don't know. He was saying a lot of different teams. But yes, I do agree with Pittsburgh. They do have the opportunity to shock the world. They do have one of the best defensive lines in the country. But also they haven't had their offense like their defense, the strong defense they have. They don't have that strong offense ever since James Conner left and Nathan Peterman left. But look what they have to go against. They have to go against North Carolina. They have to go against Notre Dame. They have to go against other teams. Virginia Tech, they're ranked this year. It's going to be difficult to see Pittsburgh, jumping them to go and be the number 2 team in the ACC. I just don't see it.
I have to agree. I think Pitt does have a very strong defense. They have a lot of strong returning players, including Patrick Jones, DeMar Hamlin, and Paris Ford, just to name a few. And I do think they will have a very strong defensive year. Doesn't mean a conference championship appearance. I don't know. I think it's too early to tell. We're only 1 or 2 games in, depending on the team. So I do think that it's too early to tell. But I think it could mean a conference championship. We'll just have to see.
Michael, what do you think?
I'm going to have to disagree with Connor on this one. Pitt does have a great defense, but I'm going to have to go with Notre Dame being second behind Clemson. They're led by their star quarterback, Ian Book, and they have a great offensive line, so I feel like they're going to make it to the championship game against Clemson.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Michael. I don't know what Connor's thinking about Pitt, but they're going to have to jump over Notre Dame. That's going to be a challenge, especially considering it's only for the number 2 spot behind Clemson. One team he didn't talk about, though, that I'm really excited to see this year is Texas. They're going to be my breakthrough team. I think that they're going to do better than last year. Sam Ehlinger's senior year. Jack, agree or disagree?
If y'all know me, I am the least fan of UT. I hate them horns down. Even when they play Oklahoma, I know this is a sin if I live in Texas, but I always cheer for Oklahoma. I just don't like Texas.
No.
Maybe next year they'll never win. Vince Young, he's their knight in shining armor. They'll always go back and look at the glory days. They're not winning this year. They might actually come out and win this year because they don't have to play every week. They don't have to play all these other teams, but they'll end up choking somewhere down the line. Sam Ehlinger always chokes down the line, so I'm not worried about Texas at all.
Now, I'm going to have to talk to you later about liking Oklahoma over Texas. Like, come on. Like, I hate both. I don't like either team, but
I'm not
you can never cheer for
yeah,
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Like, honestly. But I honestly have to agree with Sarah on this one. I think Texas will have a breakout year, and I think they'll end up doing a lot better than they have in recent years.
Michael, you agree?
Definitely agree with you, Sarah. Texas is going to have a great year. They have a star receiver in Brandon Eagles, and they have a great quarterback returning in his senior year. So definitely they're going to put up points and have a great season. They did dodge a bullet not having to play LSU this year due to COVID, but we'll see how it goes for them.
I agree. Everyone was really excited about them beating UTEP, but we here in CUSA, we know a little thing or two about UTEP, and it's not quite as impressive as you'd like to think. But coming up next, we are going to preview tonight's big game between UNT and SMU. Big rivalry week, so stick around.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
My mother used to say, a long time my mother used to say, a long time.
Play Eric Amarola's Race Day Mix.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. Big game tonight for UNT, playing our rival SMU in the Safeway Bowl, as it is affectionately known. Lincoln, how do you think that UNT matches up against a powerhouse team like SMU?
Well, it's kind of hard to say right now. On paper, stats-wise, UNT is sizing up to SMU very nicely. I think we lead in total yards, rush yards, and just in a few stat lines, UNT does look good against UNT or against SMU for today's game. However, defense will need to step up. So it's very hard to say with our defensive trouble right now.
What do you think, Jack?
The Battle of I-35. I don't know if we can really call this a rivalry. We're 6-32-1 against SMU, but I'm feeling that 7th win this year. But we do. It'll be interesting. Both teams really don't have the strongest of defense. Both of our specialities are our offense. Even though SMU's did look a little shaky against Texas State, they did get a new offensive coordinator, and Shane Buechele lost a couple of his best receivers. So it's kind of a mixture of they might still have been gelling and inexperience coming in. But I did play against Shane Buechele in high school. He went to Arlington Lamar. I went to Arlington High, and he was good there. He's been getting better progressively every single year from Lamar to UT now to SMU. So maybe this year is the year he really makes the next step, and hopefully he doesn't make the step against North Texas today.
Yeah, Jack, a man of little faith. Jack, just so you know, we might be, 30-something and 32-6 against SMU, but 4 out of our 6 wins have come here in Denton, so could be a good night tonight. Also, nice humble brag about playing football in high school. I see you. Michael, how do you think we match up against SMU?
I feel like we match up great. Just like Jack said, both of our teams struggle defensively, but we do have pretty good offenses. So hopefully tonight's game is a very high-scoring game. Even though the history, we only won 6 games and like 40 times we played each other. Hopefully we can win this one since it's at home, like you said, Sarah.
And Michael, do you have any key players for this game that are going to help UNT get over the edge?
Key players for this game, I would say, is
Darden?
No. What's his name? Bean?
Jason Bean.
Jason Bean. My brain farted. Jason Bean most definitely is our key player for this game because he's our quarterback. Quarterback is the most important position. Hopefully he comes into this game and plays just like similar to how he played against HBU, not afraid to make plays, throwing the ball deep downfield, and uses his legs sometimes if everyone is covered.
Jack, what about you?
I don't know if I'll necessarily put it to one single player. I really do think it comes down to our whole defensive unit. We only got 1 sack against Houston Baptist, which, you know, if we're getting beasted and feasted on the line by Houston Baptist, that might not bode well against SMU. But, you know, you have Dion Novell, you have the Davis, there are 2 linebackers. You have, you know, experienced corners. You really need them to make that necessary step to beat SMU at what they are the best at. If they come out slow, we may be seeing, you know, a 40-20 loss like we did last year.
Yeah, I do agree. I think defense is really the key for UNT today. Our rush defense doing great. We only allowed 89 yards versus HBU, which I think is very impressive. However, like I mentioned earlier, we did allow over 450 yards of pass yards. So I think our pass defense does need to really step up for today's game. On the SMU side, I'm looking at Shane Buechele and TJ McDaniel, just a really good duo there for SMU. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they pan out against the defense for UNT.
I agree. I mean, I've always got my eye on Jalen Darden for UNT. Trey Siggers, younger wide receivers like Jair Shorter, and then obviously you can't forget about Dion Novell on the defensive side. And speaking of defense, how does UNT stop Shane Buechele? Shane Buechele is as much of a veteran in college football as any veteran as anyone could be. Jack, is there a chance?
I think there is a chance. You got to cause chaos. I mean, if you can't get pressure on him, he's going to sit in the pocket and he's going to pick you apart. If you make him improvise, you have to make him run and gun. That's where he's going to struggle. He can't, you know, making him throw on the run. He's not as accurate as he does in the pocket. So if you can apply pressure often, then you can get him off his game. But if not, he's going to pick you to pieces.
Yeah, Shane Buechele did have. Shane Buechele is a air raid quarterback. I think we can all agree on that. In the past 2 weeks, he's had multiple 40-plus yard passes against both teams that they played. And so I think the key to stopping Buechele is really just tighten down our secondary, our pass defense in general, and just being able to control the pass yards that we allow against SMU.
What about you, Michael? You think we have a shot against Buechele?
I definitely agree with what Jack said. We have to apply pressure. We must blitz him and not allow him to be comfortable in the pocket. Last week against Texas State, he threw 2 interceptions, and both of those interceptions were caused by him being under pressure and making bad decisions. So I feel like if we blitz and do different schemes, zone blitzes and stuff like that, to make him uncomfortable in the pocket, hopefully those could turn into turnovers for our defense.
I mean, let's hope so. You know, SMU did not look great in that first half against Texas State. Shout out to Texas State for really getting it done, except in the end. Jack, what needs to happen for North Texas to actually come out and get a win?
You really hope your offense clicks. You really need Jason Bean to continue that, you know, hot start he had last week. He comes out and doesn't perform like he did. Austin Ani comes in, he doesn't perform like he did. It might be a bloodbath here in Denton, and we might be the ones. You might be seeing a lot of mean green coming out if Shane Buechele, you know, comes out and does what he does.
Lincoln, what about you?
Yeah, I think I agree there. Our offense needs to maximize. I said this a little earlier before the show started. Our offense needs to maximize and defense needs to minimize. So really, we need to take every advantage that we can on the offensive side and just get down the field, push, and just grind and just score as much as we can. Meanwhile, keeping SMU from really getting down the field on big plays, big passes. Our rush defense, as I mentioned, I think we'll be able to control SMU, but our passing defense and their pass game is really what worries me for today.
What do you think, Michael? What's your key to the game?
I feel like as long as our defense plays good and applies pressure, makes Bouchel be uncomfortable in the pocket, we could definitely win this game. Obviously, our offense has to keep that same energy and do good as well. So hopefully, I could see Jair Shorter having more of an impact this game. Last game against HBU, he had a lot of targets. He's 6'2", 215 pounds, so he's a big frame, can go up and get it. So hopefully, Jason Bean can get him the ball in the end zone.
You know, one thing that we actually don't have to count on this year, you know, which is always big in rivalry games, is the fan participation. As Zach mentioned earlier in the show, our stadium's going to be at 25% capacity. Jack, how much of an effect on this team do you think that's going to have?
I don't necessarily know if it'll have a super big impact. 7,000 fans, it's still going to be a lot. You know, we're going to fill the stadium. It is a rivalry. It might be a little more half and half than it normally would be. You have a lot of SMU people coming up. You know, it's a lot of people still in the Metroplex DFW area, but it'll be weird. It's still weird to even watch as a fan at home to see. I think, will it have an effect? It might, but I don't think it's as impactful as people are making it out to be.
Yeah, definitely not. One thing that I think is really important to remember is that, especially like with the 7,000, we're only allowing 7,000, but how many games can you really remember, especially last season, where UNT didn't have a lot more than 7,000 people in the stands? Like, especially later on in the season, our fan attendance wasn't really the highest, especially in the conference, and you just see a lot of open spaces in the stands. So I don't think it'll really have as big of an impact as people think, because really, I mean, our team is pretty much used to having low numbers at games. So I think it'll pretty much be the same old story.
What do you think, Michael?
I think they'll be just fine. At the end of the day, they're football players. They're here to play football, so I feel like they'll be focused on the game, focused on their opponent, and focused on winning.
I hope so too. I don't think that the fan attendance will have that much of an effect. In fact, I think it could help us because, you know, even though we're at that limited capacity, I'm sure that as many people as are possible to able to go are going to be able to go. My thing to look out for in this game is going to be special teams. I think that's usually big in, you know, these rivalry close games like this. Keep an eye out for those extra points and field goals, because if any of those get missed, it could end up being really bad in the end. But coming up next, everyone's favorite segment, our prediction segment. We will give you our predictions on 5 very fun games right after this.
Your zip code. Just one number different, and you might have a whole other life. Different school, different job, different dreams, different problems. In America, the zip code you're born in can determine your future. The Y works to change that, with programs and services that help everyone thrive, no matter who you are or where you're from. For a better us, support your local Y today.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your dog walker,
On your left.
your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Jeff Foxworthy here. You know, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Well, thing is, there's a lot more to say. Like if you've ever found yourself burning yard debris and then walking away, well, you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Find fun activities to do, like boating and biking, or camping and hiking, plus much more. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
Hi, I'm Smokey Cole Bear, filling in because for 75 years, Smokey only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Meanwhile, the song was wrong. We did start the fire. Go to smokeybear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
And welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. Thanks everyone for so much for joining us this week. I know I can speak for everybody on the crew when I say we're really looking forward to the rest of the season. It's going to be a great season, even if we are here in the studio instead of at the stadium. But before we let you go, we want to make some predictions on some games. First game up, we have App State versus Marshall. Fellas, I'm taking App State. Lincoln, who've you got?
I have Marshall, actually. Call me crazy, but I really think that Marshall could do some damage this season, especially last week. Again, their 59-0 win over Eastern Kentucky. Their quarterback, Grant Wells, the redshirt freshman, really just looked really great. He just picked apart the Eastern Kentucky defense there, and so I really think that they could do some damage. So I'm going to take Marshall.
All right, Jack, what about you?
I'm gonna go Appalachian State. Appalachian,
tomato.
East Coast. It's one of those. I'm gonna go with them. They're nationally ranked. I think they're playing at home. I believe Marshall, Grant Wells. He did pick apart Eastern Kentucky, but it is Eastern Kentucky. Appalachian State has been, a ranked opponent. Has been ranked the past couple of years. So I think they have that, that leadership, that kind of, experience that to go in. They have a strong offense. Marshall has a strong defense. I think the strong offense beats out the defense in this matchup today.
Michael, what about you?
I'm going to go with App State on this one. They have a very talented, strong offense, and there's a reason why they're ranked number 23 in the nation. So I feel like they're going to pull this one off over Marshall.
And I'm very curious to see what Connor thinks. Connor, who's your pick?
Oh man, what a tremendous game this is going to be. I mean, I've already talked about it earlier, how this is one of the best non-conference games, especially from the group of 5 for the 2020 season. But man, when you look at App State, I mean, they have almost been like the Alabama of the group of 5 in the playoff era. In fact, since the playoff era, since 2014, App State has the 9th best record among FBS teams. That's crazy. I mean, they've been in existence before UCF. So I'll go with the Mountaineers here to continue their recent trend of success. A great game that may come down to the wire, but I'll take the Mountaineers in this one. What do you guys think?
All right, Lincoln, you're standing alone on that one. App State for all of us except Lincoln. Next game up is going to be Miami and Louisville. I'm taking Louisville. Lincoln, let's hear it.
All right, well, I actually agree with you here. I'm going to go with Louisville. I really think that it'll really be Louisville's receivers versus the Miami secondary. The Miami secondary, a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces against the experienced Louisville receivers, and so I think that'll play the biggest key, and I think Louisville will pull it out.
Jack, what about you?
It's a really close game. Louisville's only a 1.5 point favorite against Miami, but I'm going to go with that 1.5 point. I'm going Louisville. Sorry, Manny Diaz. Sorry, the Canes. I love the U, but the U's going to go down today. Gregory Rousseau, it's a big loss for that Miami defense, and especially going up against this high-powered Louisville offense. That's really going to affect them. They really relied on De'Aaron King to kind of go around and do what he does. But I think Louisville, can cause enough commotion, cause enough problems to kind of subdue the things that De'Aaron King really strives with.
All right, Michael, who's your pick?
I'm going to have to go with the Hurricanes on this one, led by De'Aaron King, former UH quarterback. I saw him play back then, and he was just a guy that can use his feet and his arms to make plays on the field. So definitely going to be a great game, and I can't wait to see who wins.
What about you, Connor?
ABC primetime game of the week. Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler. Does it get any better than this? I tell you what, this could be another great game that could come down to the wire as well. But it's currently, the Hurricanes are currently favored by a point. But I'm going to go with Louisville in this game to take care of business at home, and I think they do so decisively. I'll take the Cardinals by 2 touchdowns in this game.
All right, next game up, La Tech versus Southern Miss. I'm going to take Southern Miss in this game. Lincoln?
All right, well, I'm actually going to go with La Tech for this one. I'm going to look at last season's game, La Tech versus Southern Miss. As we know, Southern Miss coming into today's game is 0-1. La Tech finally getting their very first game of the season. And so yeah, I'm going to go with last season's game. La Tech beat Southern Miss by a score of 45-30. And really, a lot of their key players are returning to both teams respectively. And so I think that it's basically just going to be same story, different chapter, really. So I think La Tech is going to pull it out.
Real quick, Jack, what's your pick?
I'm going to go Southern Miss. They have Jack Abraham and Frank Gore Jr. I never thought I would ever say that. Frank Gore's still in the NFL. I was playing with him on Madden 08. He's still in the league. I'm going Southern Miss.
Michael?
I'm going to go Louisiana Tech on this one. They're consistently good, so I feel like they're going to put up a good fight and win this game.
All right, we're split here in the studio. Real quick, Connor, break the tie.
My gosh, another great game. All these great games. 2020 is going to be crazy with a lot of close games, as what we've already seen, and it will continue tonight and throughout these, especially for the first month of the season with the kind of off-season we've had. But I'm going to go with Southern Miss to turn things around. I know they didn't get off on the right foot, but I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles here. Louisiana Tech has a lot to replace from their defense, going against an experienced quarterback in Jack Abraham for the Golden Eagles. I'll take Southern Miss at home, and I think they cover the spread, which is currently 5.5 points right now. I'm going with the Golden Eagles in this one.
With Jack and me on Southern Miss. Next one up, UCF, Georgia Tech. I'm taking UCF. Lincoln?
I'm also taking UCF. UCF had a very good season last season, and without losing a lot of key players, I think that's really good. I think they're going to have another good season like they did last year, so I'm going to take UCF.
Jack, what about you?
I'm going UCF, 2017, 2018 national champions. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going with the Golden Knights, baby.
Golden Knights. Michael, how about you?
I'm going to have to go with UCF on this one. They're consistently good, 11th ranked team in the nation, so why not?
All right, is Connor going to break that one?
You look at this game, Georgia Tech just pulled off an upset last week against the Seminoles, but I think UCF's going to find a way to win this game. I know they're playing at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech may find a way to make the game close, but I'm going to go with the Knights here. The Knights have been UCF here recently. They've been one of the better teams in the country the last few years. I'll call it safe, and I'll go with the Knights. What are y'all thoughts on that?
Clean sweep for UCF. We will either all be right or all be wrong. Biggest game of the weekend, UNT SMU. I'm riding with the home team. I'm taking UNT. Lincoln?
This is tough because UNT is my school, but I'm going to have to go with the Ponies on this one. I think the UNT defense will really be our Achilles heel today unless they can really show up, and I haven't seen anything that'll prove me otherwise.
Jack, real quick.
Sorry, boys, I'm going SMU. Special shout out to the kicker of SMU, Chris Nagar. He's a close friend of mine, high school friend. Hope you do good, buddy. Have a good one.
Michael, what's your pick?
Unlike the rest of you guys, I'm going to go with UNT, stay loyal with my team, and hopefully we can pull this one out.
Awesome, and I think Connor told me backstage he is taking SMU because he is a traitor to his own school. But that is all the time we have for this week. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mean Green Game Day. Please join us next week where you can meet our away game crew, and join us the week after that where you can stick with this crew. Thanks so much for joining us. See you next time.
Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3.